What's up? It's Tom. Thanks for joining me here for the midweek game version of the Twins system recap. Going to talk about Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday's minor league games. But shout out, also the Twins won on Monday, meaning they swept the Rangers on the road. Kind of strange that they had a mid-series off day, but there was a World Cup game in the area. So, but yeah, Twins on the road, sweep the Rangers, look good doing so. Team still in the hunt in the American League. I'm not sure, how much weight we want to put on that, but they're 36-40. The American League's pretty bad. I think there's like 3 teams in the American League that have a positive run differential. So, Twins kind of benefiting from that in the conversation, but still, a nice run for them. Saints had a postponement this week and then lost both ends of a doubleheader on Thursday. You don't see that too often. Some huge run totals, though. Saints scored 21 on Tuesday. Kernels scored 19 on Tuesday and then 13 on Thursday. The Muscles, they scored 9, 9, and 16. So massive. I don't think we're going to talk much about pitching in these performances, but some pretty massive outputs in terms of offense. Lots of news and notes, too. By the way, the 21 runs the Saints scored, that tied a CHS Field record. Crazy. But news and notes, Kalen Culpepper was placed on the 7-day injured list with a hip strain. Exited his game on Saturday. Didn't really know what to expect. Hope it doesn't sound very serious. They haven't really put out a timeline, but hopefully he won't be out too long. Kendry Rojas joined the Saints for a rehab assignment. Walker Jenkins' rehab was moved up to Cedar Rapids, and apparently he's not expected to be there for long before he rejoins the Saints. Kadeem Jiao was promoted to Wichita. Enrique Jimenez kind of took his spot as the co-catcher with Eduardo Tait in Cedar Rapids. St. Paul activated Alan Roden off the injured list, and the Kernels got Caden Kendall back off the IL, and Cody Morissette was promoted to St. Paul. He's a guy who's spent a lot of time in the Marlins system, had some previous AAA experience, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, let's get to the 3 stars of Tuesday. Eduardo Tait, the 3rd star in that big game for Cedar Rapids, 3 for 6, 2 homers, 2 runs, and 5 RBI. We're going to be talking about him in a little bit. So we'll move on to the 2nd star of Tuesday, Enrique Jimenez. In his high A debut for the Kernels, 2 for 4 with 2 homers and 2 walks. 2 homers and 2 walks in his high A debut for Enrique Jimenez. Great game out of him. But the 1st star, the returning Alan Roden in his first game back with the Saints, never left the star scoreboard despite missing so much time, and he's picking up a 1st star here. 3 for 4 with a double, a homer, and 2 walks, 4 runs, and 4 RBI. I feel like it's really hard to score 4 runs. But yeah, Alan Roden with a huge return back to St. Paul. Moving to the honorable mentions for Tuesday. Do want to call out Jenkins wasn't an honorable mention barely, but 2 for 5 with a homer, 2 runs, and an RBI for Cedar Rapids. Aaron Sabato, which with all of these performances, usually would have gotten these guys onto the star scoreboard, but again, just a huge output across the system on Tuesday. But Aaron Sabato, 3 for 5 with a double, a homer, and a walk. He has cooled off some in June with an 865 OPS, but his May OPS was north of 1,000. Mick Abel had a tremendous rehab start for the Saints. I'd imagine his next start is coming with the Twins. Sam Armstrong also pitched well. The returning Caden Kendall, as we call out, he just returned off the IL. He had a big game, and Ramiro Dominguez hit 2 home runs for the Muscles. I think he leads the Muscles in home runs, if I'm remembering that correctly. But moving on to the 3 stars of Wednesday. Quentin Young gets a 3rd star, 2 for 5 with a double and a home run. He homered in back-to-back games and then went 0 for 6 with 5 strikeouts the next game. So the full Quentin Young experience there, I'm positive he committed an error in that mix as well, but I think people are dogging on Quentin Young a little bit too much, but it definitely has been ugly and inconsistent for him. 2nd star, Marek Houston, who continues to play really well. 2 for 3 with a double and 2 stolen bases with 2 walks. Reaches safely 4 times and steals 2 bases for the Kernels. He's hitting .417 with a .532 OBP and a .604 slugging. That's an 1,136 OPS in June. And something I shared recently on a Limestone Pipeline, every Monday I do kind of a weekend review, and that's free for everybody. So check that out. But Marek Houston actually has better offensive numbers with Cedar Rapids than Kalen Culpepper did with Cedar Rapids, which I think is a very interesting fun fact. But moving on to the first star of Wednesday, Andrew Cossetti, catcher for the Wichita Wind Surge, who's been really hot. A guy who has 220-plus career games in Wichita now, so itching to move his way up. 3 for 4 with a triple, a walk, a stolen base even for Andrew Cossetti. Not as big of as active of a game on Wednesday of a day, but he's got 1,011 OPS in June, 5 homers in 13 games already for Andrew Cossetti in June. And again, a guy who's catches, so big, well put together guy, Andrew Cossetti. Wednesday's honorable mentions. There you see they're not going to read through all of them, but Kalai Rosario stayed hot. I do want to call out Brandon Winokur, who didn't have a very eye-popping performance here, but just do want to say his strikeout percentage went down from 40.2 in April to 21.4 in May. He hasn't quite held that up, but it's 28.8 in June. So, not spiking back up to above 30. That's a good sign. But he has a 14.6 walk percentage this season. That's especially notable because it was at 8.3 both of the last 2 years. So a big jump in walks for Brandon Winokur. Still only 21 years old, which isn't super young for the Midwest League anymore. But he is facing pitchers older than him in 87% of his PAs so far. So there you see Riley Quick. Didn't get a mention in the honorable mentions, but that line, just like his last time out, that he was pitching much better until he got to the 5th inning, given another chance to get through the 5th inning, but couldn't do it, and ran into a lot of trouble in that 5th. So kind of spoiled his outing, but still it's good to see him getting through 4 really well and getting into the 5th at least. And then another call at the Saints were rained out on Wednesday, so that's kind of why it was a lighter performance-wise on Wednesday, in addition to just not as much production. 3 stars of Thursday. A 3rd star goes to Gabriel Gonzalez in the Game 2 of the Saints game. He's actually going to be on here twice because he's also getting an honorable mention for Game 1, so he had a huge day for St. Paul. He's got a bum heel, so he's playing a little bit more first base. Not getting around very well. So definitely playing, that's not just like he's recovering. He is playing through an injury. Luckily, they don't think it's significant enough to have to IL him or anything, and especially because they're so short-handed, the Saints right now. But he's having by far his best season of the month so far. So the best month of the season so far, is Gabriel Gonzalez. 2nd star, Byron Churrillo, who's had a quiet season thus far, but a guy who came over way back in the Pablo Lopez trade, and he's been at Fort Myers forever. He's got 180-plus games with Fort Myers, but a big game, 3 for 4 with a homer, a walk, 3 runs, 4 RBI for Byron Churrillo, and he has a 390 OBP this season, and I think that's like a huge thing that he needs to do because he never really grew into any kind of power that people maybe had hoped at one point. So it's got to get on base, got to cause havoc, Byron Churrillo. 1st star, though, Eduardo Tait. Yeah, I told you we were going to talk about him later. As the DH in this game, Eduardo Tait. Big performance out of him. 3 for 5 with a double and a home run, 2 runs, and 6 runs batted in. So he was an RBI monster this week. He has 7 homers in 13 games this month. It's a .625 slugging. That is coming with a sub-300 OBP. It's an interesting kind of change. I don't know if it's intentional, but his strikeouts are way down, too. So I think he's just swinging earlier in counts and trying to do damage earlier in counts. Again, I'm not sure if that's intentional or if that's just kind of coincidental so far this month, but he had a 26.9 K percentage entering this month of June, and it's all the way down to 14.7 so far. So, the sub-300 OBP is a little concerning, but when it's coming with this much power, when it's coming with a huge reduction in the strikeouts, I think there's kind of some interesting experimentation going on here with his approach. But I mean, when he's putting up games like this, we're not going to be complaining, that's for sure. He's having a great month. Honorable mentions for Thursday. I'm not going to read through all these, but again, Gabriel Gonzalez. Honorable mention for the other game as well. Just a really good day. Demiri Pena had a 4-hit game. But Luis Fragoza is just kind of a guy I want to keep calling out to get on the radar. 19-year-old Venezuelan playing with Fort Myers. In 22 games with the Mighty Muscles, he's hitting .302 with a .355 OBP and a .570 slugging. That's a .925 OPS with 5 homers in 22 games. As a teenager, that's eye-opening for the Florida State League. Jenkins played for the Kernels on Thursday. Played center field, so that's a really good sign. 1 for 3 with a walk and a run scored for him. And Kendry Rojas had a pretty ugly rehab outings with the Saints. Inning and a third, gave up 5 runs on 5 hits and a walk. So tough. But let's move on to the full season star scoreboard, and look at June as well. But, kind of the familiar names, Kalen Culpepper, Marek Houston, the only guys to break 30. Houston is nipping at Culpepper's heels now. They should rush KC back so he can defend this top spot. Speaking of back, Alan Roden tied for third. Despite all that missed time, he has just had some massive games. I think I looked, and he has 20 walks and 15 strikeouts for the Saints, and OPS north of 900. Just has been awesome. And I don't know how he's going to sneak into the Twins situation before, or if injuries or trades open doors, but he certainly deserves another shot up there. Moving on through, you see down at 21, Ricardo Olivar. I think he's done for the year. So Gabriel Gonzalez or someone else about to pass him up and push him out of the top 10. Sabato holding steady. Moving on to the June star scoreboard. Let's take a look at this as we kind of wind down. I mentioned how hot Andrew Cossetti was. Yeah, he's up there with Marek Houston at the top spot, tied. Sabato and Kalai Rosario, you know how hot those guys have been. They're right up in the mix, but Eduardo Tait really pushed himself, and should call out Tait's one of the guys who's in a tie for 11th in the star scoreboard. It's Tait, and I think Brandon Winneker's in that tie for 11. Mike Paredes, trying to remember this off the top of my head, and Kadeem Jow. Yeah, 4 guys tied for 11th place with 20. So he's right there on the season to date as well for Tait, but having a really nice June. But there you have those. Matt Wallner and Royce Lewis factoring in on those. Kind of been odd to have them in the mix, but again, not going to exclude anybody. But even like Mick Abel, who's on a rehab assignment, not excluding anybody from these. So that's that for this system recap. Again, check out Limestone Pipeline, me and Jamie Cameron, as we get closer to the draft. Especially, Jamie's going to be delivering some great stuff as he has all year. So check that out. Thanks for checking this one out. Appreciate you. We'll talk again soon.